Hello and welcome to No, It's Crochet. My name is Nicole Bandis and thank you so much for joining me. Today we are going to talk about what I've been working on this week and chit-chat a little bit about some crochet conversations. They're not specifically drama. I'm not going to put them in the drama category, but they're interesting conversations. So let's dive in. But the first thing I have to tell you is the weather report. And today in Phoenix, it is supposed to reach 111 degrees. So I'm not wearing any crochet at the moment and just enjoying trying to stay cool. Actually, kind of am. Wait, did you see these? Check these out. Okay. They're not perfect. I was inspired by Blondie Knots, and I will link to her video on these below. She has been creating these and selling these in her Etsy shop, and I thought they were so stinking adorable. And I figured out how to make them, so I decided to make myself a pair. They're a work in progress. There's a few things I need to work on and tweak about them, but the raw product so far is so cute. So if you want to grab yourself a pair, I so encourage you to go check out her store. I know she's doing drops on them periodically because they're selling out really fast. And since I didn't get a chance to grab them, the last couple of drops she did, I'm like, let me just figure out how to make these on my own. So that is what I'm wearing crochet related right now. Okay, whips. So my very first, the first one that I want to talk about is the Granny Square blanket, and I have made zero progress on that. So I've just been focused on other things, so I haven't been working on that at all. And I'm totally okay with that. It's just kind of a long-term project, so whenever I don't have something else that I am working on, then I will work on that, but it's fine. The next project is the Harbor cardigan, and I did make quite a bit of progress on this. So I have the front and back panels all done. I do have to block it and steam it, of course. So you can see that I added the pink kind of stripe in there. And if I try and put this on, sure. It definitely needs, I need to work on it. And I think I am going to end up having to add a thicker sort of border around it. I don't think the pattern actually calls for that. We'll see once I block it. Maybe it's going to be okay, but right now I feel like it's going to kind of sit too far over here for my taste. And I just kind of want something that it doesn't have to close all the way. I definitely don't need that, but maybe about here. And if I kind of stretch these, it might work out. I gotta seam it up and check it out. And so I did start working on the first sleeve. And once we kind of get those done, we finish attaching everything. Again, I'll decide whether or not I want to do some border. If I do the border, I'm probably going to do it in this pink just to kind of give it a little bit more pink. Plus, I think I'm kind of running out of the purple. I don't have a ton left of that. I don't think I would have enough to do a pink or a purple border. But maybe I'll do like a couple of rows of the pink and then a couple of rows of the purple. Who knows? I don't know. That's not part of the pattern, so I'll be winging that part, and we'll just kind of see how that goes. So I have made progress on that. Yay! Now, the denim jacket that I am working on, I finished, my initial calculation was that I needed anywhere between 24 and 32 granny squares because I was thinking based on the circumference that I had, I needed 4 around and then up to 4 down. So I took my first 16 and created the sleeve with that and stitched them all together, and it was way too big. Way too big. It was just a beast. Not only the length, but also the width. So this is what I have now. I have cut back, and this is 9 granny squares instead of 16. So 9 granny squares, and what I will do is just kind of do a band at the top so that I can expand it a little bit, so when I attach it to the jacket, because if I stretch this too much, it looks stretched, and I don't like that. So I think the alternative is just to kind of do a couple of rounds to give it a little bit of an increase, so that when I attach it to the sleeve, it's not pulled so much into a stretch. But this should be much better. It's going to fit about there, and then I will do some sort of cuff. It's not going to be a tight cuff, but I think I might just do kind of a loose baggy cuff here. And I don't know, we'll see. The thing that I have figured out with this is that the vision that I have in my head has changed. Like, I try it, doesn't work out. I tried something different, doesn't work out. So it's totally okay. Like, I really thought I was going to do some sort of a fancy sort of fur or eyelash type stitch to attach these. And the consensus in my social media, if you haven't followed me on Instagram, you can join me on Instagram here. And the consensus overall was that the eyelash was just way too busy. It would not hold up over time, and the clean look was a much better sort of overall thought. So then I thought, maybe if I'm going to do a clean look, I'll just do, just the whip stitch or the mattress stitch, so that it doesn't even show at all. And overall, I liked that look, but my fear is that this yarn is just not, I don't know. I ended up wanting to have just a little bit of detail in there. There's a few reasons that I ended up going with the black. I actually think I like the black. I kind of think it gives it a little bit more of a grunge look. And if you recall, the jacket that I'm putting these on definitely has sort of that grungy kind of feel to it. So I think the sleeve is going to be a good look. It's got the zipper and everything. So I think I'm good to go on that. And again, I just need to kind of do some sort of an increase so that when I attach it to the sleeve here, it doesn't pull too much and it doesn't look like it's stretched completely. Now, the interesting challenge or thing that has resulted in the fact that I went from 16 squares to 9 squares was that even though I was not sure, I thought, I still needed a few more squares to finish the second sleeve. But now I have so many squares that what I may end up doing is coming up with a way to, I don't know. I honestly, I don't know. I don't love the idea of attaching this as a hoodie. I'm kind of not that big on that. And I don't know how I would add the zipper part. Maybe I'll just have these as extra squares for something. I don't know. Maybe I'll figure out how to kind of attach them to the back. But I'm not a big fan of looking like that patchwork kind of look. So probably not. I think I'm just going to end up, maybe I'll make a bag or something that this can go with. Something to use up the extras of these, because I now have plenty of squares. Way more than I thought I would need. So, okay. So that is sort of the progress on that. I expect to probably be finished with that, with actually probably with both of those pieces before our next chat next week. So fingers crossed I can make enough progress to finish both of those up, and I'll have 2 more finished whips to share with you. Now I did finish one project this week, just something super small. Part of my stash busting desire is to get rid of this Red Heart scrubby yarn that I bought thinking I was going to make dishcloths out of, and discovered that I absolutely positively, beyond a shadow of a doubt, cannot stand working with this by itself. If you've ever tried to use this, there's some new ones out now that are made out of cotton, whereas this is actually made out of polyester. And let me tell you, this feels so much like plastic. It is redonkulous. I cannot stand this stuff. It is hideous to work with. But what I have figured out is if I pair it with a cotton, then I can tolerate it. I don't like it. I want to use it up so that I can get it out of my stash and be done with it, because I love the idea of why I bought it, is that I wanted to have some washcloths with it. And so that's sort of my mission, is to kind of use that up. And I made this one. It's actually wet because it's been in my kitchen. I'm using it. This one using the moss stitch and a really big hook, since this is a worsted weight, and this I believe is a worsted weight. Yep. So since they're both worsted weights, I didn't want this so dense that it was like a Brillo pad. And so I used a 7mm hook and the moss stitch, which made it a little bit lighter weight. It's a pretty good weight overall. I think I'm going to keep using this pattern combination to make a couple more of these and try and use this all up. Now, my thought is I've got some navy blue, I've got some white, so I'll just kind of rotate those 3 colors, the red, white, and blue, and get that used up. So this used a little bit of scrap yarn. Well, not really scrap yarn. Used a little bit of yarn. And then I also used, I am sort of on a kick, and I may end up making a video about it. My initial thought was that I was going to do a video of 30 stitch patterns in 30 days. And I was going to learn 30 new stitch patterns in 30 days. And I'm not loving that. I'm like 3 days into it, and I'm like, I don't know about this. We'll see. Maybe not. But anyway, I am making an attempt to learn some new stitch patterns. And in that attempt, I am using up some additional scrap yarn. So I've got some going out the door for that. I've also, in that process of trying to use up some of that scrap yarn, I realized that I have some of that old, super scratchy, really annoying acrylic, and I can't use it. It's just like nails on a chalkboard for me. So I have set that aside to donate, or, whatever the case may be, but it is not going to stay in my stash. I can't do it. So I did have some stash reduction for that. I also am selling a skein of yarn through Ravelry periodically. I have a lot of my yarn that I don't know what I'm going to do with it, or I don't have it slated for a specific project. If I'm not totally in love with it, I have it listed for sale on Ravelry. And every now and again, somebody's like, hey, are you willing to sell that yarn? And so I have a skein that's going out the door in the next couple of days, as soon as the payment goes through. So that will be a little bit of a stash decrease as well, like 280 some grams. So already this week, I am down just from those little things, like 350-ish grams. I don't know exactly what it is, but anyway, something like that. Okay, so that's good. And then, of course, once I count the True for the cardigan and the chrome fingering for the jacket, by the end of the month, I should be like really doing good on this stash busting, as long as I can resist buying more, which is really hard to do because there are a few yarns that I'm like, well, I need one yarn for a pattern that I want to finish up before the fall. It's a hibernating pattern that colorway was not available last fall, so I put it away until it became available. The colorway is now available, but I don't want to just buy that colorway. I mean, that seems silly, so then I'd be like buying some extra yarn, and I'm trying not to do that, but it's like, can you relate? Do you get it? Ugh. Anyway, so that's the predicament I am in with that. Okay. So let's talk about some of the plans that I have for this week. And oh, you know what? I have no idea where I am on this one. So I cannot work on that. It's all right. We'll just chat. It's all good. We'll chat. Yeah, so let's talk about some plans I have. I'm going to finish up at least one of the sleeves on the denim jacket so that I at least know what it's supposed to look like. I really, really, really would like to finish up both sleeves and the cardigan. If I can get that done this week, I will be, yes. Then I will be moving on to the next denim jacket, which is this white one. And I did break down and buy a Swift. It's not supposed to arrive till next week, but I have got this massive badonkadonk size amount of yarn that I have to wind, and I don't own a Swift. I have made do without a Swift up until this point. Now, a lot of people don't buy hanked yarn, so they never need to buy a Swift. Totally okay. I do actually buy hanked yarn periodically, and I've been gifted a lot of hanked yarn. Hanked yarn, if you're not familiar, it's that yarn that when you kind of twist it up, it's like these. These are hanks. Yes. And then, it kind of wraps in on itself and it ends up looking something like that. That's a hank of yarn. And this is not easy if you do not have a Swift to wind into a cake because it gets tangled really easy. I've just used like an upside down TV tray where I could kind of drape it over the legs and manually kind of pull it off like that. But this is a rather large hank of yarn. This is 400 grams. So it is a lot bigger than I usually do, and it would take me a lot longer. So I finally said, you know what? I'm just going to buy a cheap Swift. Now, if you've never priced out Swifts, they go everywhere from, I think mine was like $26 for a cheapie. Like, cheapie? I mean, it's got good reviews, so fingers crossed it works well. All the way up to $150 for some of these nice wooden ones. I'm not quite sure what I get with $150 that I'm not going to get with a $26 one. If you know the answer to that, let me know in the comments below, but I cannot justify remotely considering spending $150, or even We Crochet had it on sale for $80 because of the Prime days. They're doing some of the specials too. Even at $80, I'm like, I could buy one for $26. Why would I spend $80? If you have a good reason, put it in the comments below because I can't see it right now. So that is on its way, and I will get this all wound up, and I'm 90% sure that this is the yarn that I am going to use with the white denim jacket. So once I get this kind of wound up, I'll get a better sense of what it looks like and how I can use it, and start determining what stitch pattern I want to use for the sleeves on the white denim jacket. Let's talk about a couple of social media posts that I recently picked up on. The first one was a question about whether or not acrylic yarn could be used for making things like market bags. This particular person had a lot of acrylic yarn available. She wanted to do a market bag, and she was wondering why most market bags talk about using cotton. And I'm going to use this as a shameless plug to talk about my bag, which is this Beach Waves bucket bag. And because I have done this I know very well why cotton matters. And that's because cotton does not have the stretch that acrylic does. So if you make a bag with acrylic and then put stuff inside that bag, it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And the weight it's perfect for some things. But if you want something that is going to be resilient and not stretchy, then your cotton is not going to give at all. There's no give in cotton. And so that's essentially why you want to use cotton for bags and that kind of thing, as opposed to an acrylic that can get stretchy. So if you want the pattern for this bag or this actual bag, both of those links are going to be in the notes below, and you can grab those. The pattern is still available for free, but only for about another week. And then it will be a paid for pattern. But that brings up an interesting point, in that there are a lot of different types of yarn, and I love to experiment with different yarns and just kind of see what I like and what I don't like. I don't like to stick to just acrylics or just cottons. I like to explore a lot of different things that are out there. And different yarns have very, very different properties. So, for example, I've been teasing about this review. I do still have it coming out. I have a review coming out about the True Boo and how True Boo yarn, the bamboo, can be a little bit on that stretchy side, similar to what an acrylic would be. Now, if I did a pattern that takes that into account, that's right, then it's perfectly okay. But if I use it with a pattern that doesn't take that stretchiness into account and was designed for a yarn that has less stretch, then that's going to dramatically affect the outcome and the result of the pattern. If you want to know a little bit more about that, check out my Great T-Shirt Experiment video series, because I worked up the same exact t-shirt pattern using a couple of different types of yarn, and I give you some thoughts and ideas on those different types of yarn and how they worked up and how they were different and all that kind of good stuff. So if you love to just really explore the different yarns and you want to know a little bit more, go check out that video series. It'll give you some great insights on that. And this idea of different yarns having different sort of benefits as well as different feels. Like, some people can't stand Lily Sugar and Cream cotton. This is actually, I think, this is Lily Sugar and Cream. And other people don't have any issue with it. Well, another post that I saw recently talked about, she said that she felt like she was the only one that loved the process of crochet, but hated the end result, hated what crochet, the hats and the bags and the sleeves and, all of that stuff. She hated the way things looked when they were done, but she loved the process. And this brings up an interesting sort of concept to me. And that's that there are so many different things to crochet, and a lot of us don't actually see a lot of those variations. So if you're sort of in the younger millennial gen, I never remember what comes after the millennials, the next generation after that, a lot of your social media is going to be focused on amigurumi and granny squares and bright bold colors and all of those things that, to me, a lot of that is not very appealing. I don't want to wear a halter top. Don't want to do it. Maybe 20 years ago I wanted to do it. Not today. So if you're seeing a lot of things in social media that are not attractive to you, and those are the things that you end up making because that's all you have the exposure to, then it's natural that you might not like the end products. In the same sense, if your exposure to crochet focuses a lot on like the big box stores like Michael's and even Hobby Lobby and Joann's before they went out of business, then your focus might be primarily in the worsted weight yarns. And a lot of the resulting worsted weight or bulky or chunky or, even bigger, a lot of the products that result from those, especially garments, tend to be so bulky because crochet makes thicker fabric than knitting, for example. And if that thicker fabric is not something that appeals to you, then the bulkier weight yarns, the heavier weight yarns, are going to detract from your experience of what the final product looks like. So if you can move down to DK even, or sport or fingering weight yarns, and start looking for patterns that use those lighter weight yarns, you may actually find that there's a lot of products that you do enjoy because it shifts what the resulting product ends up looking like. So my suggestion is to really explore different things within the crochet craft. And it could be, if you're focused primarily on amigurumi, check out garments or check out household goods or check out different styles of crochet like Tunisian or mosaic or, filet crochet. There are so many different ways that we can crochet that all uses a similar process. I mean, you're tying knots with a hook. That's really what it comes down to. But the result of how you tie those knots with hooks and what kind of yarn you're using to tie those knots with hooks varies greatly. And there's a huge, wide array of different things. Now, at the end of the day, if you're like, hey, you know what? I want to use worsted weight yarn and I'm happy to make hats. There are some amazing organizations that you can donate your completed projects to. And I'll link to some. Like, I was once going to do a whole video on places that you could donate your crocheted items, but there's plenty of those out there already, and they change on a regular basis. So I'll link to some different resources down below. But just keep in mind that throughout where you are, whether it's homeless organizations or the Linus Project or blankets for pet shelters, various things like this, there are places that you can donate your end resulting products that somebody will love and appreciate them. And then it's off your hands. You don't have to worry about it. So you got to make it, you enjoyed the process of creating it, and you don't have to keep it around just because you did it. So that's, a great way to sort of handle it. It's okay if you donate those items. And frankly, it's okay if you don't finish projects. I'm just going to say it. Let yourself off the hook. It's okay if you don't finish a project. Totally understandable if you like the process and you just never quite pull the trigger to get all the way through to the end. Not a problem whatsoever. Just enjoy the process. That's what it's all about. All right. So just a little personal news I wanted to share because I hit a little bit of a milestone. Back at the beginning of May, I'd been topping out at my highest non-pregnancy weight ever for couple of years. And because I have a very, very, very strong history of family obesity, I'm always very conscious of what my weight is doing. And I have this tendency to be what's called skinny fat, which means I look skinnier than I actually am. And, so I have a very high body fat percentage because I have very low muscle mass. So it kind of offsets in that way. And so at the beginning of May, I decided it was time to get my weight back under control, and I am now down 10 pounds. So I know, like, for a lot of people, 10 pounds is just the tip of the iceberg. It's almost to where I need to really start focusing on building muscle instead of losing weight, which means my weight might go back up. But if it does, it needs to be muscle growth instead of fat, because that's what I need. I need more muscle. And I've been doing Pilates twice a week, so that's really helping overall, I think. But I've also just cut back on what I'm eating. I'm not eating a lot of processed foods, and I'm not eating sweet, sugary foods, which are like the bane of my existence. So if I start going down that path where I'm eating sweet, sugary foods, then I get hungry and I'm chronically grazing. If I can cut out the sweet, sugary foods, then I can just stick to my 3 meals a day, maybe a healthy snack that's not fully sugar, and I do okay. So that has really been all I've done to lose the 10 pounds. And yeah, I've got about 5 more pounds to go to my goal weight, to where then I can shift and start looking at eating more protein and building up more muscle, and kind of doing that in the process as well. So I'm kind of proud of that. So I thought I'd share that news and update with you. And yeah. All right. Well, I hope you have a magical weekend and totally groove on some awesome crochet projects. And we will talk to you next week. Hey, Farah, take us the heck out of here.